So now that we're starting to learn how to use methods, I'm going to show you how we can use a static method to make the code a little bit more elegant, easier to understand, and eliminate redundancy. So what we're going to do is we're going to refactor a previous example program that we did, and I think you'll appreciate how this will make things work a lot better. Okay, so let's go ahead. So this is the demo program that we did to introduce the for loop. And basically, it's the one that prints out the histogram. So we have three sets of winning, the number of wins, and then we want to print out a histogram chart that shows that graphically. And so basically what happens is for each one of these wins, we have this redundant code block. So you can see that this code here gets repeated 3 times once for each winner. Whenever you see a pattern like that in your code, that's really suggesting that you can use a user-defined method. So let's go ahead and create a method called print wins. And one of the things that will be interesting about this method is it will be a void method because it's a method that does something. It doesn't calculate or return a value. So one of the things you can do with methods is you can, there goes my damn mouse again, sorry. One of the things that you can do with methods is you can take code that's used multiple times and just kind of encapsulate it into a method, so you can call it with one method call. And if you think about it, there's about eight or so lines here, and they're being repeated 3 times. So I can get my code a lot sparser with less lines, and it'll be easier to read. Okay. Also, you can look at this from the other approach too. As we write our programs, we tend to write them at the high level. So when I did the pseudocode for this, I wrote print the table header, and then print the results for Tom, print the results for Jan, print the results for Betty. Well, that's real specific. Actually, these 3 sections are just print the results. So working top down to develop the program from the outline, I might have decided that I could have used the method right from the beginning, and that would have been better. Never hurts to refactor your code. Oh, excuse me, to make it more efficient. Sorry about that. Need to drink a little bit more coffee. Okay. So again, the redundant code here is kind of suggesting what we need to do. So let's just go ahead and start by copying this first block. So use the Control-C. And then here's the end of my main method. Remember that when I write static methods in a Java main class like I have here, they have to be inside of the class but outside of the main method. So this is the end of my main method, and this is the end of my class. That means that my new method, my static method, has to go here. Okay? So let's start by creating the method, and we'll make it public. It has to be static. And then next is the return type. And as I mentioned already, this is a method that doesn't return anything. It doesn't do a calculation. It performs some actions. And so when you do that in Java, that's called void. So the return type for methods that don't return actual values is void. Okay? And then this is going to be called print wins. Again, I'll use my camel case. And now I'm going to have some parameters here, but I haven't figured those out yet. So I'll go ahead and put in my block, and then I'll go ahead and paste in the code that I copied. And of course now this is not going to be results for Tom, right? So notice that now I have some errors here because of these variables. So I'm going to have to figure that out, but those are my parameters. So let's think about this. What information does this method need as inputs to allow it to do what it's going to do? Well, it looks like it's going to need this name and it's going to need this number, which is an integer, which is the number of wins, right? So let's go ahead and add those in. And I usually, it doesn't matter what order you put the parameters in, but I usually try to put them in the order they're used, okay? So this first thing is a string, and that's going to be the name. And we could call that player name. Let's make that, yeah, let's just make it player. So the idea here is that I have some game, and so these are players, okay? So that's the player, and then this is win count or total wins or win number. Let's say total wins. Notice how I'm making my variables camel case to follow. Oops, and what happened? I forgot to declare the type. Now, since total wins is an integer, right, because you can't have a half win, so it's an integer, okay? So now I've declared my lines, excuse me, my parameters, and so now we just have to replace them. So instead of Tom here, this is going to be player, and then instead of Tom wins, this is going to be total wins, okay? And now everything is good. And so now I just have to go up and fix the code that used, so it'll use the new method, okay? All right, let's just go ahead and fix this first one here. So now I'm going to say print wins, and then this is going to be Tom. And I'm recoding the first one here. Whoops. Let's get that nice. Yeah, there we go. Tom. And then Tom wins is that. Okay? So basically this method, and let's make sure we have that right. Yeah, print wins it is. So this method is going to replace all of this code. So to test this, I'll go ahead and comment out this block that prints Tom's wins. So again, I've kind of suggested to you that you don't want to write a bunch of code and then test it. You want to test as you go. So basically my premise is that this line, this method call, will replace this block. So I'm not going to just start out by replacing all three. I'll just replace the first one and try it, and then I should be able to tell if it works correctly. And sure enough, it does. So here's this stuff. This is generated now by the new method call, and then the next two lines are generated by the older code. So now all we have to do is go in and replace those older lines with the new one. And it's safe now, obviously, to delete this. So we can take that whole thing out. And then, again, I'm just going to copy this because it's kind of the model of how to do it. That makes it easy to put it in there. Whoops. I always hate when it does that. Oh, there we go. So let's line our code up and paste it in again. And so then this first one here is Jan, and then this is Jan wins, and then this is Betty, and this is Betty wins, okay? And so then I can just go ahead and delete these sections here that had all of that inlined, okay? So now let's take a look at the difference here. So now the program is really concise. It's pretty easy to read. We can get rid of the extra white space. We don't need all of that. So we print the table header, and we can probably add a comment back in here. Print the table rows with the win results. Okay? And of course, I need to test my program, and so I'll run it again. And you can see it doesn't look any different. It's exactly the same, but what I've done is I've made the code more efficient by adding the method in, and it's actually easier to understand, right? So this just takes the name of the winner and how many wins they had and prints the histogram for that particular player. And now all this code that I had repeated inline, I only have one time in here. And if I wanted to change the display, I could do that in one place. So think about it. If I wanted to add some stuff in here, for instance, if I wanted to, add a like a left-hand column, I could do that here. And now that's going to show up automatically. I don't have to go through and find 3 places in the code to change that. Whoops. Looks like I made a mistake when I put that in there. Sorry about that. Let's see what I did. Oh, I forgot. You can't put that right there in the formatting. So let's see. That should go right there. Yeah, there we go. Don't you enjoy it when I make a mistake? See? So it's kind of like a little, what do you call it? Border, right? Okay. And of course, that doesn't look very good. So I'll put a space in there, run it again. So again, the idea is not to have a lot of duplicate code in your code. You want to try to just have all the code one time. Why isn't it running? There it goes. So there I've added the space. So that looks kind of cool. And I could put the double bar in there. I could go ahead and put some other form. If I wanted to change this to asterisk, I could do that pretty easily because it's just in one place. And now if I wanted to put a border over here, that would be kind of an interesting problem, right? And should I solve that problem for you, or should I let you do it? I think I'm going to let you do that. That might be a good thing for you to do. Real briefly, though, what I need to do is basically, I know how many of these there are, so I take the total length, subtract that, then I have to print that many spaces, and then go ahead and print my border character, okay? I think your book has some example programs where you have to print out little figures with asterisks and stuff, and I'll probably have you do some of those. Okay, I hope this was helpful. I think this is a really good way to show you how we can use the methods to kind of encapsulate repetitive code. And so then we have it in one place, we can refine it easily, and our program is actually easier to understand. So if you see now, this whole program fits on just about one screen except for the method definition. And the black box idea is I don't really have to know how this works. I just have to know what it does. So basically I know that print wins is going to print a row of my table, and it takes the name of the winner, the player, pardon me, and how many wins they have. Okay? Later on, we'll refactor this again when we learn how to use arrays, and you'll see that I can use a for loop in here, and I'll just use indexing. And so then all of that will be one line, and I'll be able to print any number of players, and it'll be really nice. I won't need to have a line for each player. So we'll refactor this a few more times, and I have some other programs like that. So I think it's really good for you to see how you can start and create a simple program that does what you want, and then you can refine it. And that's called iterative development, and it's a characteristic of a software development, software engineering approach called Agile Development. And generally it's my way to go. I like to do that. So I try to get the program up and running. I try to create it in such a way that I can add a bit of code and test it, then modify and continue and test it again. The worst thing in the world is to write 2 or 3 hours worth of code and not run it, not be able to test it, and then try to get it to work. Most often that doesn't work, and you end up having to spend a lot of time debugging. If you do this approach where you write the code incrementally and test, you're going to have better results. Okay, what do I always say? Code on, dudes.